Welcome to the beginner series with Flow into Alignment. Today we're going to talk about how to find a yoga class, what type of descriptions to look for when you're wanting to do a yoga class, and other topics. So come join me as we explore all of these together today. Our first topic is how to find a yoga class. So what you can do is you can go onto Google and do a Google search to find some yoga classes in your area. For myself, I'm going to do this with you as we talk about this so you can kind of see what class descriptions you're going to come across and what they might mean. So I have done a Google search for a yoga class near me, and I wanted to pull up a bigger yoga studio so we have some more class descriptions to discuss. So I found one in about an hour away from me. And this one class description we come across first. Sometimes some people see what's called aerial yoga. What that is they take some aerial silks, which is you take big lots of fabric, you tie them to a high ceiling, and then you kind of sit in the fabric and do aerial yoga. For myself, I've never taken that kind of class, so I really don't have much experience with it and much knowledge about it. Um, but I've heard it's sometimes fun to explore. But again, because I haven't taken it, I just don't know what the precautions are for that. So I won't go into much detail about that. Another type of yoga you might come across is called, this one is called Power, Flight, and Flow. And the description says this 90-minute flow is designed to help you gain comfort and understanding in working with inversions. All levels are welcome. You don't have to be able to do headstands to enjoy this class. So what they're basically saying in this description is that they're going to go through and do like a workshop where they're just going to talk about inversions. And inversions are headstands, handstands, anything where your head is below your waist, and usually having to do with balancing on your hands or your forearms. So this one, they're just, again, talking about how they're going to do more of a workshop style, which is for their 90 minutes, they're going to do any kind of poses that will help you strengthen and stretch to prepare for headstands. And then they're probably going to focus a lot on headstands. Now, they are saying that all levels are welcome, so they're probably going to give you some different ways to adjust poses to make sure they're a little easier for you, and they'll recommend different tools you can use or different equipment, and we'll talk about equipment later on. The next one I come across is called Yin Yang, and it's saying it's mindful yin. And their description says, in mindful yin, we speak to the areas of the body being targeted and the correlating emotions being stored in these spaces. You will be encouraged to open your heart and your mind in this compassionate, mindful practice. This class will help to give you the tools to find peace and awareness on and off the mat. So it really doesn't give you much description in that as far as like what they're really going to be doing. But yin yang, typically, yin is typically something that's a little bit more close to the restorative style of yoga. So more restful, using props like blocks, pillows, which we call bolsters, um, blankets, things like that to help support the body. Like, for instance, right now, what I'm doing to support my body as I'm sitting here is I'm sitting on a yoga block. So you might have seen as I'm sitting here that I'm kind of looks like I'm a little bit raised, and I am because I'm sitting on a yoga block. So a lot of times they'll use that when you go into yin. Yin yang is when you incorporate a little bit more of what some people call power yoga, and we'll discuss power yoga in a moment, which is a little bit more of a high intensity. So you have a little bit of a high intensity and then bring it down, but you can combine them both together to kind of get what people call the yin yang, the opposite effects. But this class looks like they're just focusing on mindful yin. So I guess a lot of encouraging you to think about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and just be able to relax the body and the central nervous system as well. Lots of benefits to yin. But that's a whole nother video to really dive deep into yin yoga. Another one, again, like I mentioned, is power flow, power yoga. So power yoga could also be very similar to a type of yoga called Ashtanga. Ashtanga yoga is a very old style of yoga that is more regimented. So you do the same poses over and over and over again, and they build a lot of strength. Still, a lot of mobility is built because all yoga poses encourage the body to help lengthen and let the muscles kind of ease from their tightness. Um, but it is more of that uh, strength type and endurance type of training. So same thing with the power yoga. It's gonna kind of tap into that strength training, endurance training, things like that. Whereas yin is the more restful. Let's relax. Let's take 5 minutes to rest in a pose. In power yoga or Ashtanga yoga, you probably only are taking 1 to 5 breaths in each pose. And a breath is completely different than you think it is. Just to kind of take a little side note inside, little bunny trail down that topic. Um, so a breath is not what you typically see here in the Western world. In the Western world, we take a breath, and that's our breath. We in and out. Whereas when you're in yoga, you do a 4 count inhale and a 4 count exhale. So it's much different. But that's more of your power yoga kind of thing. Another studio I found, again, an hour away, and I know this sounds like a very far distance away. We'll again talk about that in just a moment. So don't freak out and think that you have to find someplace an hour away. No, that's not the case. I'm just, again, trying to find these bigger places that give a lot of different classes that we could talk about. So this place offers what's called hot yoga. And in part of the description, they're talking about what temperature they have the room. And that's why I wanted to highlight this yoga studio, is because they're talking about that it's hot yoga and that they're going to have the room heated to 100 degrees. Um, I am not a health practitioner by any means. I'm not a doctor or anything. I just have some anatomy and physiology background. My degree is in exercise science, so I have some information. I've learned some things, and obviously, just a lot of common sense goes into this too. And some people have found some great benefit from hot yoga. I would just caution when you're in such a hot environment, especially if you're going to be doing something like power yoga. That's a lot of work. So you're working on strength and endurance, and then you're in a very hot environment over 80 degrees. You could get dehydrated, you could get heat stroke. So it just can be kind of concerning. So just keep that in mind when you see any advertisement for hot yoga, because also if you're going to be doing any poses that cause the body to go into a stretch, um, there could be potential where you could overstretch your ligaments. And when you overstretch your ligaments, they don't go back. So that's just, again, I am not saying you shouldn't go there. I am not saying there's anything, really wrong with it. No one, obviously, people still take it and they've, had great benefit from it. I'm just saying go into it with a lot of caution and a lot of asking questions. And that's another great thing to segue into, is the asking of questions. Always, if you're always wondering what kind of class is this the great level for me, call the yoga studio or call the gym. And we'll talk about gyms in just a minute. So just like call them and ask them, is it, I am a beginner, I have either had very limited experience or no experience, what could I anticipate from this class? What will I expect? How hot will I get in hot yoga? So things like that, just ask questions. So let's move on to our next topic. So our next topic is the difference between a gym and a yoga studio. So a gym is going to be more like a fitness gym, and all of them are different as far as, can you just take one class or do you actually have to get a gym membership? Um, and they might be a little bit more of a casual setting, like we're going to go in and you're only going to spend an hour just to do fitness training, where they're not going to, they are going to still push you and encourage you to strengthen yourself, but it's going to be more of a casual environment. They're not going to have a lot of incense. They're not going to have a lot of meditation prompts. When you go to a yoga studio, you may find that they're going to have the incense, the yoga props, more yoga props and more meditation prompts. So you may find that environment. So also keep that in mind, is what kind of environment you want to step into. Do you want a more casual environment, or do you want something that's a little bit more spiritual? Some yoga studios, they don't delve into the spirituality at all, but it is a great question to ask them is, do they discuss spirituality? Do they kind of go in depth into that with their meditations? What kind of meditation prompts do they do? Is it more of a spiritual meditation prompt, or is it more of a meditation prompt just to help you relax, focus your mind, and focus into your breath? So just different things you want to keep in mind as you look at that. Another thing to consider is the cost. So the cost, again, will differ depending on if you're going to a gym or a yoga studio. And some gyms, they won't let you take just one class at a time. I teach at a gym where they do. So they do allow you to just come in and say, I just want to take this one class, and you pay for the one class. There's another gym in my town where they require you to be a member to take their classes. So it just depends on that. And of course, as you know, the gym cost fluctuates. For the yoga studio, that will also be different. And I know this is not really helpful sometimes when you're like, I just want concrete information. Well, it's hard to get concrete information. So I'm trying the best I can to describe it as the best I can. So with yoga studios, it'll depend sometimes on their experience. If you have an instructor at the yoga studio who has 20 to 30 to 40 years of experience, and you're going to take a class with that yoga instructor, they're most likely going to charge you a higher fee just because of that person's experience. Plus, to be certified, we do have to take continuing education. So there is that cost involved. And when you've been doing it for that long, most likely they will charge you a higher rate, but they may not. Typically, the on the lower end, where it just again, it's hard to say typically, but your your yoga class cost could be anywhere from $3 a class to $20 to $30 a class, depending on if you're taking from a gym, if you are just taking one class and not getting a class package. If you do get a class package at a yoga studio, it's going to be a better price for you. It's going to get you a better deal. Like you can get 10 classes on this pass for so much. So that is something also to look at is what are the different ranges of their prices and why are they charging the way that they are? Ask questions, as I keep going back to. Ask as many questions as you need to make sure you understand what you're paying for. So if you would ask me, what would I start with? If I've never taken yoga before, what class would I start with? Well, I would say start with a yin or restorative style, because that will be a great way to get into the door and find out if this is something that you would like to do. Because a lot of times yoga, when you really are stepping into it and you're wanting to be serious about really taking yoga as your main form of exercise, it takes a lot of time to realize how to relax and how to let your mind be calm and without all the clutter of the noise of your thoughts and the task rolling around in your head. So yin yoga is a great place to start. If you're just wanting to do something casual, go to a gym, find a yoga class and ask them what's their most beginner style of yoga that they're going to offer. That's a great place to start. If you've never taken yoga before, a chair yoga, gentle flow yoga, easy yoga, terms like that are what you're going to want to look for, because it'll be a slower pace. It'll be something where you'll be able to accomplish those poses and feel confident. And then after maybe a month or two, then start kind of dipping your toe into more of the power yoga, Ashtanga yoga styles. Sometimes yoga studios also offer a intro to Ashtanga or an intro to vinyasa or things like that. So those are great classes to take too, so you can kind of get an understanding of what you're delving into and the terminology, because we're using a completely different terminology for some poses. Some yoga studios even use a different language. They'll use they won't use English. They'll use like different terms. So like when you hear the word chaturanga, that is not English. So things like that. So that's what I would recommend for you to take your first class. Our next topic that we're going to discuss is what to wear. And you know what I mean, ladies. We're always talking about what do we wear? How do we wear it? Anyway, so as you can tell, I'm wearing yoga pants and I'm wearing a sports top. But to take yoga, you don't need to wear that. The only thing you need to consider is when you go to your closet or your drawers to find something to wear, you want to consider that you're going to be bending forward, and also that most likely in your class, you're going to be in rows. You're either going to be facing someone face to face, or your behind is going to be towards them. So that's something to think about is the top that you're going to be wearing comfortable enough for you to bend over and most likely you won't see anything, but still something to consider is how comfortable are you with the neckline of your top, and then how comfortable are you with what you're wearing on the bottom. So are you wearing shorts? Are those shorts comfortable for you? Also, are you comfortable bending over in front of these people? Are you comfortable opening your legs around these people? Because you will be doing like a pose like this, or you'll be doing a pose where you'll have your legs open and folding forward. So just different things like that that you want to think about as you're looking at what to wear. And mostly it's, are you comfortable wearing this? Especially for your first couple classes, you want to be comfortable. You also don't want to get hot. So consider that too when you look for something to wear, is how hot will this make you? So I hope that was helpful. Next is, what equipment should I get? So as you can see, I've got a yoga mat, and like I said earlier, I'm sitting on a yoga block, and that just helps me with my hips and my legs just to make me feel a bit more comfortable when I'm seated. And you might find the same thing when you go into a yoga class and they ask you to sit. A lot of times they'll ask you to sit to start the class, to kind of like start with your breathing work in the beginning of the class. So you definitely want to get a yoga mat and yoga blocks. Now I would say, before you go off and purchase anything, ask the studio or the gym if they offer yoga mats or yoga blocks. Because if they do, then you don't have to purchase any of that before you get there. You can just walk into the gym or the yoga studio and use what they have available before you have to purchase anything. So I'm always an advocate of save money first until you find out what you want and what you need. If you're wanting to learn more about what types of yoga equipment are out there, check out the links below, because I have linked a video about what type of yoga equipment is out there and what they can be used for. Also, check out on the links any recommendations I have for yoga equipment. Sometimes they'll come in sets, so sometimes you can get a yoga mat and blocks plus a yoga strap all together in one package. So I'll have all those links below, as well as the different yoga mats I have tried out. And some of them are name brands, and it's mostly just because the name brands are more about um, the quality of the product and how long they will last and what they have to offer. So I will link everything I've ever used and bought, as well as things that I would recommend for absolute beginners, what can be used. You can also feel free to go to Walmart or TJ Maxx or Ross or Marshalls or any store like that to find a yoga mat. There's even a place called Five Below. It's like at the new Dollar General or store like that, and you can get a yoga mat for $5. So you really don't need to spend a lot of money when you're first starting out. I hope this topic from the beginner yoga series about how to find a yoga class and where to find a yoga class was helpful for you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful day.